Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Marvel Fan Theories podcast. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Katie, and we're two sisters and borderline obsessed Marvel fans who have been following the Marvel Cinematic Universe closely for years. And now we want to share our MCU discussions with you.
We chat about our own predictions and theories, plus some of our favorites from online, and our reactions to all of the Marvel content that's considered MCU canon, including the Disney Plus shows and the movies, as well as the Marvel news you need to know. All right, it is Eternals weekend. It's time to discuss.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't seen it, you're a little bit behind in the nicest of ways. No hate towards you. But I think it's insane if you haven't seen it, because I feel like at this point in Marvel, if you aren't watching it opening weekend and you are expecting to be able to not see spoilers, that's not, like, I don't know, you're kind of out there, because you can't avoid it at this point. Unfortunately, we've reached the point where the MCU is so big that spoilers are coming out within a day or two of the movie, so you gotta see it as soon as possible.
Forget that. Spoilers were out 2 weeks before the movie even came out.
Oh yeah, this movie was really bad. They spoiled this one pretty early.
I am not going to lie to you, though. I was very lucky, and I was able to avoid pretty much all of them. So I just was like very careful on my internet usage for the last 2 weeks. I didn't watch a lot of the interviews with the cast because I know Angelina Jolie apparently gave out some spoilers.
I love her.
What a queen. She's now in the special trio.
The trio. Yeah.
Of spoilers. So we love that. But yeah, I mean, give me your reaction, Katie. I know we both saw it Thursday night separately, so I just want to hear, what did you think?
Overall, I would give this one an 8. I thought it was pretty good. Honestly, it was a beautiful, just cinematically beautiful. And I didn't expect anything less from the director. So I thought it looked great. I loved the storyline, because it came out of left field from where I thought it was going. So it did kind of another Shang-Chi moment where it was like, this is what we were expecting, and we got something very different. And I really liked that. The only reason I give it an 8 is because I do think, for a movie being about 2.5 hours long, I do think almost 30 minutes of it, I think, probably could have been cut out. Or not cut out, but maybe just sped up a little bit, because I do think there were some moments that I thought, okay, a little bit slow. We could kind of have kept this moving, or it really, I didn't think was as prevalent as it needed to be. And it, was a 10-minute scene when I was like, we could have done this in 2. That was really my biggest complaint, was that it just had some of those moments where it was just a little too slow for me, where I just thought a little bit of waste of a time in that sense. We could have been speeding this up, moving the plot along.
Yeah, I feel almost exactly the same. I was so shook. Don't get me wrong, I would go see Marvel movies 14 times. But this is the first one in a long time that I can think of that I felt like I need to see it again, because I was so taken off guard by the twist, just because of the way that they marketed the movie and how completely misleading all of the trailers were. I think the last time I felt this way was maybe Infinity War, or probably Endgame. Yeah. Was the last time I literally finished a movie and was like, I have thoughts, I can't even formulate them because I am just so shook right now. And not in a bad way. They totally, to your point, caught me completely off guard. Yeah. So that was crazy. Absolutely nuts. And then I also, too, agree, they spent a lot of time in the movie debating the morality of their decision. And while I understand, that's the crux of the movie, I think it could have definitely been trimmed. I think they could have trimmed the fat a little bit on that. I'm just thinking about that scene in the Duomo. They, must have debated that for 15 minutes on screen. I was like, okay, give me even 7.5, which is long for most movies.
Right.
I just don't know that we necessarily needed that for as long as we did. But other than that, I mean, to your point, it was beautiful. Their powers are stunning. I mean, the different historical eras that we got to visit, watching, I really liked too the way it was told in a series of flashbacks. The twist, I mean, I just can't get over the twist. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like the flashbacks, but I think that was another section of time where I think there were certain parts that were just very long. And the flashbacks, and I think maybe that's because we're used to flashbacks that are not even close to as long.
No, yeah.
Not even in the MCU, but I think in general. So seeing 15, 20-minute flashbacks where they're just explaining, oh, they're here for this whole time, explaining the same thing again and again throughout this. It was like, we could have cut that a little bit. So I did love the flashback idea. I just felt there was the moment where it was like, okay, there's like, let's move it a little bit so that we can understand what's happening now.
Yeah, I see that. I think as much as I love the twist, I think the one thing that disappoints me, and this is just like a me thing, I really liked Icarus as a character, and I also love Richard Madden. So when he started flying off of Earth, I was like, oh my god, they're gonna set him up as like an anti-hero type figure in a sequel. Like he's gonna come back and like whatever, or he's gonna like really spend some time trying to figure out what his new purpose is, because I think he finally kind of came around in the end, obviously, after nearly killing his own wife. So it's like I was like really excited for that and the character development, and then he killed himself, and I was like, no, like I really am sad because I thought he would be a great character, and I wanted to see Richard Madden be in the MCU long term. And so I was definitely, just on a personal level, like I think, whatever worked in the story, I was definitely sad that that's not a reality that we're gonna get.
Well, I was just pretty surprised by the amount of actual deaths there were. Because I know going into this, there had been a lot of, there's gonna be a second Eternals, there's gonna be like, and so I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, and having to say, like, what was it, 3 or 4? Like, or, well, I mean, considering Sprite is no longer technically, I guess, an Eternal, I kind of was like, oh, okay. So now we're down. And then they split up for, like, at the end, but obviously now we see, like, what's gonna happen. But, like, so I was just a little thrown off, but I liked it. Like, I liked it a lot because it wasn't the atypical, or I should say the typical, it was more atypical, of, like, oh, all the heroes are together, all the heroes fight together, all the heroes save the world. Like, it wasn't that, and I loved that, and I really, like, when I tell you, Selma Hayek not being in, like, the act, I was like, what?
I know, when I figured out, when they found her body, and I was like, so you're telling me she is not in present day at all? She is not actually part of the main plot line of this movie? Are you, like, I wasn't angry, I was just like, they threw us the world's best curveball. I was like, I didn't even know what to say.
To me, I view that as she was, so the director is a brilliant director, she really is. And I think she took the best advantage of that moment. She did not look at those actors and actresses and say, here are the big names, here are who people want to see. And I love that, because that was one of my biggest issues from Eternals. And I know I said this in the predictions episode. I hated the fact that they were bringing in these big names because we didn't need big names, because we were so established as an MCU already. And so I really like that she was like, not important. We don't care that their name is big. They're our character to me, and this is how I'm going to direct them.
Yeah, I mean, I just, that one, that I couldn't get over that. I was like, oh my god. And then to find out that it was not a deviant that killed, I mean, yes, a deviant actually did the deed of killing her, but that it was Icarus who put her in that position, I was like, oh my god. Because like I said, he was like my favorite, and I was like, yeah, Icarus. And then I was like, oh no. Like when he said to, oh my gosh, Kingo. I'm still trying to get my head around all of the names because there were 10 of them. But when he said to Kingo, he was like, I'm not who you think I am. I was like, oh, it's definitely because Ajax offered him the leadership position and he didn't take it. Like, because Kingo viewed him as the boss. Like, he kept calling him boss, whatever. I was like, oh, it's just because he didn't want to take it. He didn't want the responsibility. But then to find out that the reason he said that is because he actually killed her, I was like, oh my god. I was a wreck. I was like, no, please.
Well, and okay, because we're kind of on this topic, I'm gonna say one of the biggest issues I had with the movie, besides, like, the slow part, I guess I should say and it's really the only issue I have with the plot, was it brought back an issue we have had in previous Marvel movies, and there's a couple of them, but that I'm not even bothered to name them. You're gonna know what I'm talking about when I state the issue. There was a slight problem of too many villains.
Oh my god, I'm so glad you said that, because I thought that
that
some of the storylines got so, I was like, when it got to the final battle and they're fighting the Eternal and they're fighting the Deviant and they're fighting Icarus, I was like, okay, but who's like the bad guy here? Like maybe I don't know if I was being too simplistic, like wanting just like one clear-cut villain, but at the same time I was like, I just like need a little bit more simplicity in this plot. Like it was just a little too
Well,
much.
yeah, and I understood the whole point of the deviants, especially once you explain like Icarus and like his part and what all that was about. Like, okay, I get it, but it was just a little strange to me that we had this very strong deviant that, and I love Thena, but like everyone was struggling to fight the deviant before it absorbed Gilgamesh, and so like I was like, okay, so now she did it, which I was like, okay. But so we had this really strong deviant, which was like this complete side plot.
Yeah, which
and then it was like everyone
was
else.
another way that they completely curveballed us because the Deviants had been marketed as the main villain, which obviously they're not going to show the main villain in the trailer, but I just want to point that out as another way where they were completely misleading, you know, like, oh, Eternals versus Deviants, like this is the big, you know, thing, and then here it's like they're actually fighting a Celestial, which I'm sure we're going to talk about in length because that has some major MCU ramifications.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like it's weird too because are we going to now address this in future movies? Because the entire world was clearly like getting messed up here. So not only did we just have like the blip happen because they mentioned it multiple times, but what's going to be happening with like this whole point now with Celestials and the fact that the Celestial was trying to come out of Earth?
I am so glad you said that. I literally tweeted that yesterday. I was like, you can't have future movies that do not address this. Like it needs to be talked about in No Way Home. What is Strange doing? Strange had to have felt something going on. Like he had to have.
Well, there's no way he didn't. They literally say it in the movie where they're like, there was a global earthquake.
Well, not even just beyond
Like-
that. I'm talking like he's tapped into all of that cosmic energy. Like there's no way he didn't feel a cosmic being awakening in the earth. Like just from even like a power standpoint. Like obviously, yes, I'm sure felt the earthquake, but like knowing that his movie is coming up, how do you not address the fact that like one of the most powerful beings in the universe just tried to come out of the earth and the earth's most powerful wizard didn't feel that, didn't know that? Like you can't just ignore that.
Well, and my issue too is like, this is gonna be the stupidest thing, but like, it's half in, half out. So I'm also confused because I'm like, so are we just leaving it there?
She like turned it into
what's
marble,
happening?
so it's now like a new island.
Yeah.
Like that was the whole thing. Like she can now change like organic matter, so now it's like a rock, but in the shape of a giant universe creating and crushing being. So, and then at the end, in the first end credit scene, or I guess it's not considered an end credit scene, at the end of the movie when she's talking to Kit Harington's character, whose name currently escapes me, when Cersei is, and the Eternal literally comes to Earth.
Well, not like, the Eternal, the Celestial. Not the Eternal,
I'm sorry, the Celestial. Yeah, the Celestial literally comes to Earth, which is like, I mean, Earth has now been visited by a Celestial. You can't not address that. That's like,
I guess for me, I love this movie, but I think it's in the wrong spot already. Because
timeline-wise?
Yes. Because this is big and the ramifications are big, and I understand fully that Marvel said they are moving into a more like cosmic area. We are going into space. I'm ready. However, when you have Spider-Man and Strange coming out, which are wrapping up the biggest thing that fans have been looking forward to for years, which is the multiverse, or theoretically wrapping up, but it's gonna be, they're the big,
who knows?
But like, they're the big moments of the multiverse. It's like, how are you gonna bring this in now? And then also, like, I know we'll get to the end credit scenes. My biggest issues with the end credit scenes, because they only dealt with this movie, though, was that I'm like, you're not showing the ramifications anywhere else of what just happened.
Dude, we are literally like, we are uniminding right now because I was just gonna say the same thing. Like, I was like, okay, those end credit scenes, and we might as well get into them now, and then I'm sure we'll get into other stuff in the movie because I have some character things I want to talk about. But I was so surprised that both of them were so related to this franchise.
So was I.
I was like, all right, cool. You brought in Harry Styles. I jumped out of my chair. I was so excited.
Oh, I was
but I do have a question about that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, so he's an Eternal, which means technically he's not alive in the sense that a human or even a Titan like Thanos is alive. So how can he be both an Eternal and the brother of Thanos? Like, that to me doesn't quite make sense.
Well, my knowledge, first off, is they're half brothers, so they're not fully they're not fully. Also, I was definitely doing research on those, and I don't want to be the person to try to say it because I don't fully remember the proper way of why it ended up the way they did. But I do know partially Thanos was a mutation. That's why he looks the way he does.
Well, clearly because his brother's gorgeous and he looks like a gigantic raisin.
This is what I've kind of read up on, and I'm not going to be quoted on this because I can't say all my knowledge could be correct. And if you would like a better answer, I'll put it in the blog post after I do more research on it. But from what my early understanding is that Thanos and Eros are both products of an Eternals deviant relationship.
Oh my god.
And Thanos got the more deviants, like that's why he was like the mutation, kind of. And Eros was clearly the Eternal side.
But yeah, because all the Eternals look like beautiful.
Yeah, that is what I've been seeing explanation-wise. I will do further research, but that is kind of, which would make sense because we have heard in the comics, Athena has a relationship with a deviant.
Yeah.
So it's not I guess it's not common, but it's not an uncommon thing necessarily. It's like we've seen it before.
It's not unheard of.
Yeah, so that has been my understanding so far. I will do further research on it, but I mean, that would make a lot of sense. Essentially, is that and either that or it was like the Thanos is the product of a deviant and Eternal, and then Eros is the product of two Eternals, I think. And the one is a shared parent. That's how they're half brothers. It's something like that, I think.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that explanation because immediately after that end credit scene, I was like, I'm confused. We literally just learned that they're not beings, so how can he, like, beings, beings. So how can he have a brother if he's not alive in the same way that other organic beings are alive?
Yeah, that's been what I've been seeing, and so far that's the theory I'm running with. Like I said, want to do further research, but preliminary research has brought out that their shared parent had Thanos with a deviant and had Eros with another Eternal.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Thanks for clarifying. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about in the Harry Styles end credit scene other than setting up a sequel with him in it?
Well, I'm intrigued to understand why he knows Athena. Because he very clearly says, he's like, beautiful as always or something like that. But she looks at him like she has no clue who he is. To be fair, her memory is kind of muddled. So I have a theory that they've been Eternals together on a different planet.
That's what I was gonna say. And then he must have his memories. He must not have been white, where she only has flashes of hers. So that's definitely interesting. I would love to. I think that like kind of brings me back into something with the movie. Like, I think it would be interesting in some ways they almost have their own multiverse. Like,
yeah,
they've lived all of these lives that they don't remember. Like, it'd be very cool if they were able to go to wherever that place is that the main Celestial, whose name currently escapes me.
Starts with an A, and they said it multiple times, and I don't remember it.
I know. I want to say it's like Aramesh, but like that's not quite it. It's
something along those lines.
But he like described how all of their memories are in that place where they create the not Celestials, the Eternals. So I think it would be interesting, even if like they go, like the ones that are in the Duomo, if they go there and recapture all of their memories from their past missions, like that, how cool would that be to understand the lives that they led? Like,
yeah, but to be fair, like, my question when you bring that up is, we see how Athena, who's haunted because she has too many memories in her head, and we see what's happening to her. So it's kind of like, can they even technically do that? Because it might destroy their brains.
I don't think it my interpretation of what's happening with Thena is like they messed up in erasing her memories. So like yes, like she has too many memories, but only because they tried to erase them. Like I think it's different if they're like intentionally, like they can remember 5,000 years, right? Like, you know, no problem, 7,000 years, however long they've been on Earth. I guess my thought process is it's more to do with the fact that they incorrectly scrambled her mind than it is with the fact that she has all of these memories. Like they're not supposed to be there because of what they've done to her, not that her brain couldn't naturally handle them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of had, from my understanding of the movie, it was more that she had too many memories in her head and her brain couldn't handle that. Because they didn't wipe her completely clean, even though the attempt was there. That was my understanding of it, was that they tried to wipe her like they do any other time, and because they failed to do it correctly, because she's living the next part of her Eternal's, like, life, she is not able to, like, that's why she's having the problem that she's having, is because she already has memories from before. Because, like, I believe it's Ajak who even says, like, you know, she is suffering from too many memories. Like, you have too much. Because your brain can't handle the amount of memories that you're making.
Right. I just wonder if it can't handle it because they place limitations when they do the mind wipe. Like, that's what I'm wondering. If there's, like, another part of that that limits the capacity for memories, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's just kind of how I interpreted it, that, like, she was only really messed up because they put guardrails on their minds and their memories, not because, quote unquote, her brain can't handle it. It's just that they don't want her brain to be able to handle all of those memories and all of those other lives and, like, the truth about what their real purpose is.
Right. Well, I mean, clearly not all of them are angry about the truth of their real purpose.
Right. But they can't necessarily take that risk, and I think meaning the Celestials can't take that risk. And also, I think it's entirely possible that depending on what happens to them on different planets, they might react differently to the truth about their mission. Like, so for example, they've been on millions of planets and they've never once tried to save it from the Celestial emerging, but like Earth is the exception, right? So like it's also depends on their experience with the native species of that planet and how whether or not they grow attached. Like they grew attached to the people of Earth and Earth itself, but they obviously didn't for the millions of other planets that they did, or that they had previously helped a celestial emerge, or they would have tried to stop those as well. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just like, I don't know, it's like a weird, I like it, but I think it's weird and it's a little hard to fit my brain. Like,
yeah, that's why I feel like I need to see it again.
Yeah, and especially too because like Ajak knew all that time, so I was a little thrown off that she was like, "It's happening now, let's stop it." When I was like, "You knew what caused it to happen. Why did you not?"
Yeah.
Like, why were you not like sabotaging along the way?
I think though, like, I think what really changed her mind was the blip. Like, so she talks about how Thanos, like, obviously delayed it because he halved the universe or the population of the universe. And then I think she really liked the people, like, don't get me wrong. And I think she grew to really enjoy the people of Earth and you know, how we are. But I think after Thanos, then she was like, well, now I don't have to do anything. Thanos did it for me, you know, like he basically set them back thousands of years before the population recovers. But then with the blip, it like, first of all, accelerated the process back, and second of all, she was like, not only did I think these people were amazing before, but now look at what these people have done. Who, I mean, yeah, there are some people that are enhanced, but they're nothing compared to a celestial, you know. So like I think that just like even more cemented how special the people of Earth are in her mind and made her more willing to take that step and protect them. At least that's my interpretation of it.
Yeah, because I just like, I don't know, I think it was interesting because if you look at the players, Ajak always knew. So did Ikaris. Thena did, but no one understood what she was seeing, but she knew what was going on. She knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Because she had the memories of it, and everyone was like, oh, she was going a little crazy. And it was like, no, she knew. what is his name? Who he has taken a great place in my heart, and I can't remember his name. The one who starts with a D. He has mind control. Why?
Oh, Druig?
Druig. I was like, I know it, and then for some reason within the past 20 minutes, I was like, I can't remember it. I mean, he even was like, what are we doing here? People are just killing each other. Like, he was like, why do you want us to be doing this? We're creating this society in which people are murdering each other. People are just, you know, we've done this. Like, we've created the things that they're doing it with. And I mean, Fastos did the same thing. You know, he was like, after the nuclear bomb, he's like, I did this. And he wanted out. Like, so I guess I just, like, when you look at some of those characters and the way that they, like, they're, I would say, like, the 5 who either knew what was going on or was like, I don't accept that we're doing this to people and what we're already doing, let alone, like, they didn't know what was going to happen, but they were like, why are we doing this? Like, these were all the people who either were aware of the mission or questioning the mission more than anything. So,
yeah,
I think that's an interesting when you, like, look back at those 5, you're like, oh, okay. Like, there was a lot going into this. And so I think it's interesting because I like the concept of the Celestial kind of, like, being in the planet kind of thing. And I like because that really dwells on what Ego was doing in Guardians.
Yeah, for sure.
Planting his, like, children, essentially, so that he could one day, but they were going to be in his, like, they were going to be his children directly, which is
well,
what
just to expand, like, the idea of expansion.
Yeah.
Like, that's clearly, like, the purpose of the Celestials. Like, it's in their, I guess their DNA. Like, it's, like, you know, the same way that at a very basic biological level, like, humans, you know, are supposed to reproduce. That's what they were doing, but at a much grander scale than anything, obviously, any human could do.
But I guess that's also interesting because it brings in, like, when we look at other space characters, specifically, like, Captain Marvel, who's supposed to be the protector of all these worlds and the entire universe and is around the universe all the time. I'm like, do you not ever run into a Celestial being born?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. But also, how often do Celestials, like, emerge? Like, is it, like, something that happens every, like, because think, the Eternals were on Earth for 7,000 years. So, like, does it take 7,000 years for a Celestial to be ready? Or, like, for the essential energy? Like, I don't know.
But my thing is what Marvel has taught us from probably, I would say, Guardians, really the best understanding of it, is we clearly don't have, the 8 or 9, but depending on how you feel about Pluto, planets in our solar system. I'm personally a 9 person, but whatever. So if you really look back at that, it's like we have all these other planets that are in the entire universe. And so it's like, yeah, how often? But when you are like, even 1,000 planets, let's just say that, it's like, well, that's still, like, often enough. And she's been around since the 90s. So I'm like, so in 30 years, you never saw another Celestial destroy an entire planet?
I mean, that's a really fair point. I
even
don't have
Thor,
like, well, did you catch that line from Kingo?
Yeah.
When they were in Australia, and he was like, yeah, Thor used to follow me around when he was a kid, and now I can't even get him to call me back because he's a big Avenger. I'm like, whoa. In what? So, that was my, but, like, if you were on Earth for the past 7,000 years, what the heck were you doing on Asgard?
Yep.
Like, they're different planets.
I was thinking that, and I also was like, I kind of feel like I need to start getting an explanation here of, like, we got space, but we got, like, the 9 realms, so where does that fit? Like, what is that whole overlapping thing?
Yeah, are they 9 planets?
Like,
are they, I mean, I know they always say that, like, Thor and Loki are aliens. Yeah, okay, they're from a different planet, but, like, are they from a different universe? Like, I don't, like, Captain Marvel's never been to Asgard. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, and then you also have, because the Guardians are out here space hopping. So I'm like, I'm a little lost because when he's explaining to Jane Foster and Thor the 9 realms, and he's like, you know, you have Midgard. Midgard is literally just considered Earth. Right. So I'm like, that to me is planet. But when you call things realms, I consider that more than just one thing. I consider that like a oh, like this is the fire realm, so there's like a ton of like fire related like like that's just an example because clearly there's not like a fire realm, but like that's what I think of.
Right.
So I need like a further explanation on where Asgard, because they only call it the 9 realms. So I'm like, is this space split into 9 realms?
Yeah, no, I don't want to say always wondered that, but as we've gotten more and more into space travel, I've started to like, especially as I was rewatching the Thor trilogy, like pick that apart more. Like in my head, I was like,
Yeah.
that made sense for that movie, that explanation, but it no longer makes sense in the wider MCU, or at least it needs further explanation for how that framework then fits into the wider MCU.
Well, yeah, because then they have they have Jotunheim, which is its own realm as well.
Yeah. Svartalfheim.
Yeah, like they have, so that's why I'm like, but these never come up anywhere else. So I'm like, are we on like a superior plane where Asgard exists? Because they are considered the gods. They're not, like, yeah, they call them aliens, but they're all gods. They're like, that's why they live the way, like, as long as they do. And a lot of them have like Thor and Loki, for example, have abilities. Like, they're gods. So are we to consider, and for people who can't see me, which is everyone but Taylor at the moment, Earth, like, for example, being on the bottom, space being the next level of the sandwich, and Asgard being, like, and, like, the 9 realms being the top tier, where they're just, like, we're the Gucci people up here, and, like, what is happening?
I don't know.
Is my question.
I have, like, real questions about that, and I, like, really need Kevin to do another Reddit,
I bring up a
AMA.
new question. I bring up a new question.
Go for it.
Which is even more important to me. Thor and Loki are even older than Captain Marvel and never saw a Celestial be born anywhere?
Yeah, especially because they've interacted clearly with the Eternals.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, like, did he think that it just, like, wasn't happening on Earth? Like, maybe he thought that Earth wasn't chosen as one of the birth planets? I guess that's the wrong term, but I'm calling it a birth planet.
I mean, I guess that's kind of what it is.
Like, I don't know.
But, like, that's why
honestly,
I'm confused.
I have so many questions.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, I need that. And I think this was a big question we had even in the predictions, which I don't think has helped since the movies come out, is where the heck is this fitting? Because I see it up in the space area. I see it in its new, like, once the second Eternals comes out. But even, like, when they're talking about all the stuff that's going on, I'm like, where, like, I can't even, the closest to you are the Guardians, and I could not see you interacting with the Guardians.
No.
Not in the same way.
No.
Because you are not on the same plane.
I guess because they mentioned Thor and Loki, I can see them potentially being kind of in the same, like, area, especially because if you think about it, like, the Eternals are also regarded, or at least they were in the past, kind of in, like, a godlike manner by a lot of the civilizations that they helped. So I could see them kind of existing on the same plane. And then the only other space-oriented person out there is obviously Captain Marvel, but she does not fit them in the same way.
Well, that's where I thought Icarus was going to end up. Like, he was going to run into her.
I'm still a little annoyed about that. Just, again, for selfish reasons. I just thought that they...
Well, I just was a little surprised.
I just feel like you have that great character. Like, why... It's like Killmonger. Like, you have a fantastic character. Like, must you kill him? You know? Like, or can he be used and involved in this franchise moving forward or other franchises? You have a great actor who did a great job with an interesting and complex and flawed character. Why do we always feel the need to kill them?
Yeah, that's fair. Because the villain... Well, okay. Well, I'll get to that in a different way. But the villain, yeah, the ones that are the most complex and the ones that I think, like, I will say, like, I felt for Killmonger, didn't feel for Icarus. Didn't feel for him. Not in the way of, like, I like him or don't like him. I just was like, I think you're wrong. But maybe that's also me being the thought process of, I'm from Earth. But, like...
No, I agree with you. I meant complex in the sense that, like, he's not, like, one-dimensional. Like,
well,
I think, you know, like, for example, Whiplash in, like, Iron Man 2. Like, he's a very one-dimensional villain.
Yeah.
And I think both Killmonger and Icarus, you know, whether or not you agree with their mission, I think we've already said our piece on how we feel about Killmonger and his purpose and how he goes about it. And you know, I also felt that Icarus was wrong. But I think you can't deny the parallels that they're both complex in the sense that like there's a lot more considerations than just, well, your dad screwed over my dad, so I'm gonna get you back. Like
Right.
there's a lot more
Oh,
kind
yeah,
of
I
at
agree.
stake there.
Well, and okay, so I think now is the time to bring up, I think it was the Deviant, the main one, when he started talking.
Kroos?
Yeah. When
Or
he started
Crone or
talking,
Kroos, something like that.
I was like, yo, is that Ultron? Like, when he first started talking, I was like, yo, is that Ultron? Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. Because I was like, why does he sound so similar to him? It threw me off.
I didn't make that connection. I'm definitely gonna have to listen back to it now. But I think I read somewhere that he's a very famous like horror movie actor. And I know you sometimes go for horror movies, so maybe that's
yeah.
why it seemed recognizable to you. But yeah, I don't know. I thought that whole Deviants thing, it became too much of a subplot that like went away for too long and then randomly came back up at the end, and I was like, I don't.
That was kind of my problem.
We completely kind of deviated from our talk about the end credit scene. Are you ready to talk about the second one?
Well, first I want to say I think we did pretty well on our predictions.
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
to be fair, we did one movie, one not, because that's typically how they follow, which is why I was a little disappointed they were both movie related, especially because they were both very easily predicted.
Well, yeah, between the two
is
of
kinda
us,
sad.
we got them.
Yeah.
I said the one about Black Knight, and you said the one about Harry. So
Yeah.
between the two of us, we hit 100%.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, go us, but at the same
They-
time,
they
like,
were too easy to
I
be
definitely
predicted.
wanted them to surprise me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to be
Well, like,
surprised, and I was a little
I'll even
upset
tell
that
you-
they didn't.
Yeah, and I'll even tell you, like, so I went Thursday night, I went by myself, because girl boss move, and I was sitting dead center, and I had a group of guys on my left, I had a group of guys on my right, and I started talking at the end to the group of guys on my left, but at one point, like, so they didn't really like the movie, they thought about, like, 2/3 of it, they were like, it was kind of just boring, and I was like, okay, I could, like, get it, but you also, like, come on, like, let's look at the bigger themes, that was the point of this movie. But regardless, they even were like, part of the reason we came was we were expecting to see like a Spider-Man one, like end credit scene. And they were not very excited over the two end credit scenes. And I was like, to be fair, I agree, because they, as much as I loved, especially like, okay, Harry being, I mean, he was confirmed, but like, this is confirmed. You know, so it was like, as much as I love that, and that's obviously setting up the next Eternals, and obviously the one with Kit's character is clearly setting up a completely different thing as well. I just was like, why'd we do them both in the movie, or as end credit scenes, because you didn't expand this anywhere.
I really feel like the Harry one could have just been
the movie.
like the last scene of the
Yeah.
movie. Yeah. Like it was not.
Or the Kit one could have been in the movie as well. Like both of them seem that they could have been in the movie.
Either one, you could have just added 5 minutes to the movie and then done.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't Spider-Man, because I know they want to keep that as under wraps as possible, and we talked about that in the predictions. I really didn't think they were going to do a Spider-Man one, but you have so many franchises that are coming up at the beginning of next year and early next year.
But even like doing like a Strange one would have worked, you know? Like anything that hinted towards the two biggest movies coming out.
Or a Ms. Marvel who, I mean, we're going to find out on Friday when it's Disney Plus Day, and they kind of release their slate, which I think is going to be really important and exciting. I'm super looking forward to it, but you know, I'm expecting her in a January or February leading right up into Strange. So, you know, this is a perfect time to intro that character. Why are we not doing that?
I want to bring this up. They're not integrating the shows that much. And yes, they're gonna be they're clearly part of the plot, but when you take a step back, they are not integrating the shows. And I noticed this even in the opening sequence. The shows are not in the Marvel opening, but Shang-Chi's already in it. Black Widow's in it.
Interesting.
But the shows aren't. And I was paying attention to that because I was looking for them. I was looking for Sam as Cap. I was looking at Wanda coming out when she's in her full, like, and has, like, become the full Scarlet Witch. You know, I was even looking for Loki, and none of them. But
you know, now that you say that,
Shang-Chi is in it.
I think one thing that I've been noticing is they're not going, with the exception of Loki, which is the only one that's renewed for season 2, they're using the shows as a vehicle to, they're like mini-series to get characters from point A to point B for their next movie.
Yeah.
Like they're, with the exception of Loki, they're not using the shows as like content themselves. Like if you think about WandaVision, the whole point of that was to get her from being Wanda Maximoff to the Scarlet Witch. The point of Falcon and the Winter Soldier was to get Sam from the Falcon to Captain America.
Right.
The whole point of Hawkeye is to get Hawkeye to retire and for Kate Bishop to take up the mantle. Like, it's really their character development driven, only to get them or their protege ready for the next franchise movie.
Exactly.
Which is not what I was expecting, but interesting.
But that's why I was saying, like, they won't do the shows as an end credit scene because they almost ignore the shows completely, as if they haven't been coming out. They, like, and I've been noticing that with the movies too. They're only leading them to the next movie. They're not leading them into, oh, there's a show coming out in the meantime.
Well,
oh, there's another show coming out in the meantime.
That's not necessarily true, because the end credit scene of Black Widow led into Hawkeye.
Oh, that's fair. I did forget that one. But other than that...
So, yeah, I mean, it might just be a function where they're working out the kinks of how they're going to integrate the shows into the MCU. Like, right now, they're using them as character development drivers, and it may be down the road as the shows begin to so, for example, like, all the shows that have come out before, they're characters that we know from the movies that are getting ready for other movies, right? But the slate that's coming up in Moon Knight, Ms. Marvel, She-Hulk, what else is slated for next year? I'm missing one, but there's Secret Invasion, I think is next year, but it might be 23. But I know the first three are slated for next year. Those are all introducing new characters, right? So this year we're focusing on previously established characters, but I think we might see the shows change in their purpose as we begin to use them as character introductions rather than character development.
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, and I agree. I just think, like, that was why we aren't really seeing the end credits for them, other than... Because, like, Black Widow, it also made sense because what were they going to tie her, like, movie-related end credit scene to? Because, like, I guess that last one... But, like, you know what I mean? Because it was, like, we needed to see where we were taking... Because I don't even feel like it's because we're going to Hawkeye. It was because they were like, where are we taking Yelena next? That, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, well, it wasn't even because, like...
Knowing that it's a movie that took place in the past, they had to be careful about what they could do because, like, everything's already happened.
Well, that's what I mean. So it was like... But, like I said, even the end credit scene was not for, like, let's introduce the show. It was, we need to show you where we're taking this character because you're seeing more of her.
Yeah.
You know, like, it wasn't about, oh, let's bring in Hawkeye, because that was not how that worked. Another issue I'm having is I'm like, can we start clarifying where these movies are coming in?
Yeah.
Like, let's just, because they just keep saying, like, after the blip, and I'm like, but, like, where? Because we also have two, well, not Loki, because I guess Loki's not really, like, counting in this sense, but we have two other shows that are also like, oh, they're after the blip, and it's like, cool, where?
Yeah, well,
where
are
we? Which came out, what, 3 years ago? 2, 3 years ago?
2, yeah.
Like, so it's like, yeah, like, we're all over the place here. That's why I need to understand where Eternals is. Now we have 3 Eternals that are like, oh no, other Eternals are in trouble. And then we have the other 3 Eternals that are like, haha,
yeah,
we just got kidnapped.
A lot going on. I guess one thing I worry about, and I think I was finally able to crystallize this thought after the Eternals, is the MCU is spread out in a way. So we had phase 1, obviously, early on, right? And nothing was connected. That's fine, but there were only 3 or 4 franchises. Now, nothing is connected, and there's like 7 franchises going on, and it's a little spread out and disjointed and confusing.
Yep.
And I know it's too early to connect them, but I need something. I need a little help here.
Well, and if you think about it, and I think this was something I brought up in a previous podcast, I have a problem with how Endgame, everyone was like, let's fight together. And then Endgame ended. Everyone was like, peace, sayonara, never see you again. So, like, that messes me up with the old characters. And then if you really look back at it, who's the only ones that have been connected so far has been what? Shang-Chi and Doctor Strange, and then Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. Because Black Widow, I guess, doesn't fully count because she's
I'm just trying to think.
Dead. So, like, it's not like she's...
Well, there's Skrull, Nick Fury, and Spider-Man. Though that's, again, a questionable connection because it's not really Nick.
And we also see the Skrulls, though, in WandaVision, but no one's talking about it.
Right. Yeah, I know.
So, but you also have the connection from Wanda and the Marvels.
Right.
So, like, that's what I mean. Things are a little, like, there are connections, but also, blah.
But they're like, they're like, all right, you know this person's gonna be in this movie. Like, we've not actually seen any of the connections on screen yet. And I think once we start to get into the properties where we do, things are gonna make a little more sense. But right now, I'm just feeling very overwhelmed by all of the content that's coming out that's completely disconnected from all of the other content coming out.
Well, and that's why Eternals, I said to you earlier, I love the movie, but what the heck? Because why is now the time that you said we should have released Eternals?
Yeah, I agree.
But we're going into Spider-Man and we're going into Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, I think the timing was definitely questionable, and I don't know that it's like, I just don't want them to run into another Captain Marvel situation where everybody kind of looks at it disfavorably, not because it's a poorly done movie or not because it's a bad movie, but just because it like fell, just the nature of where it fell in the cadence
in the
of
wrong
the movies.
place.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't happen because I also enjoyed the movie.
Well, and I was happy to have watched it, and I love it whenever we get, especially a movie. Like, I love the shows, but really the movies are the hype, special. You know? Yeah. And I will tell you, though, I would have, and I loved Eternals, I really did, but I would have willingly watched it any other time and been okay with waiting another month until No Way Home came out.
I agree, especially knowing that Hawkeye comes out in, like, 3 weeks? Like, it's not like we're starved for content. You know, yes, it's been, 6 or 8 weeks since Shang-Chi came out. Like, so yeah, but we're used to only getting 3 movies a year.
That's what I mean.
3 movies, period.
That's what I mean.
You know, so I just don't know that we needed 3 movies and a show to come out in the last 4 months of the year.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know?
Well, and that's why I just was like, okay, because, obviously, I think we should talk about the quick elephant in the room just as part of the conversation. Clearly, critics shot this movie down, and audience reviews were through the roof. So,
yeah,
I think, it also, to the grand scheme of things, doesn't, and I'm glad that the audience loved it especially, but it's it doesn't help when you're putting it in a weird spot.
No,
this is what they did to Captain Marvel. And I mediocrely liked Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I
just
don't
as a movie.
Is it my favorite? No.
Yeah, just as a movie, it wasn't really one of my favorites. It's definitely lower on my list. But I'm not gonna lie, I will probably blame part of that as it came out right after Infinity War, and I was like, I could care less. I'm sorry. I'm more worried about the fact that all my favorite characters just got dusted.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, there's just something I really want to talk about with the Eternals that I really, really liked, and it goes to Druig, so I think you're gonna like this.
I love Druig.
But I really enjoyed how, so they're set up as these godlike creatures, right? And then he actually develops this god complex just by the nature of his powers, and because I think arguably Icarus has one too.
Yeah.
But I think Druig is, with his mind control ability, is really his is really prominent, especially in the way he just controls that village in the Amazon. But I really loved how they were not afraid to really dig into each character's flaws. I loved them as a unit, and they were great, but they did such a good job of balancing the family aspect with this person is an individual and this individual has flaws, and
yeah,
I loved that. I just loved the way that the characters were done.
And they did it very well with, I would say, most of them, because obviously I think it's hard to not do, because I think Gilgamesh, for example, and is it King? It's Kingo, right?
Kingo, yeah.
Okay. I think, they not so much flaw area, I wouldn't say. They were, and I'm not saying that's a problem, because I think it was good to not necessarily dive deep into every single character, but, you see how Phaistos is, what he's battled with and how he's accepted that he just, and, he moved on in his life. He said, I'm done with this because of what I've done and what I've helped these humans do. You see Druig, who's which this is to the point I was saying earlier, but Druig's I can stop all of this, and I'm being told not to interfere. And that's and so, I think that is what, for him, creates a slight god complex. So you see, this guy goes off in the middle of the Amazon with maybe 100 people, and just lives in a peaceful society, that he created. Because he's look, no one kills each other when I can control that they like each other, and that they're happy, and all that. And I'm not saying they were under his control 24/7, they weren't, but there's a scuffle. Druig stops it. you know? So that was a big thing for him to just be like, I like can do all of this and I'm not allowed to, and I can't stand that because I can't watch these people hurt themselves. So I like, those are very deep ones. And to your point, Icarus, you know, Icarus has the God complex for the sake of, he knows he's the most powerful. Everyone treats him as the most powerful. And yet this entire movie, and I thought it was really interesting, they show how every character is like, Icarus, what should we do? And even at one point, he's like, Ajax didn't choose me to lead. Like,
it's, I'm so conflicted on how I feel about Icarus and his treatment of women, mainly Cersei. So like,
yeah,
it's weird to me because in that moment, I was like so proud. I was like, here's a man who, even though people are looking to him, he is humble enough to say, she was chosen. She was the one who was selected. I will follow her. Like, most men in most movies would have taken that as a natural opportunity to take the power from underneath the woman and undermine her and take the leadership position.
yeah.
I loved him in that moment. I was like, yes, you support her because she was chosen. However, I think it was Thena who says to him, or Thena or Mercari, I don't remember which, always, or maybe it was Fest, whatever, one of the ones who was fighting Icarus, when Cersei begins to turn the Eternal, I think it was into a rock, one of them says to him, you always did underestimate her. And then I thought about it, and I was like, this whole movie, he talks about, I left you because I didn't want to burden you with the truth. I came back to protect you, as if she couldn't handle any of it on her own. And part of that is because she does not have the confidence in herself.
Right.
But perhaps if her partner had had that confidence in her, she could have grown earlier on to have the confidence she had to be the leader at the end of that she was at the end of the movie. And so I thought about it and I was like, he's so complex in the sense that he almost infantilizes her, yet at the same time, he, you know, he supports her as the leader, but is he only doing that because he's going to undermine her anyway because he doesn't believe in her plan? Like, I don't know. I have so many conflicting emotions.
Yeah, but I will say, like, as a kind of side note to that, I really, like, I thought it was interesting how deep and complex they made that relationship, when in the trailer it was like, oh, look at them, in love, you know?
Yeah.
And then, like, I really like Druig and Makari.
Yes.
I love them. If anyone takes a peek, I'm not gonna lie, I was fangirling a little bit on the Twitter because I like couldn't not fangirl on the Twitter.
The new power couple.
Like, yeah, like the 5 minutes of on screen with them together that I got, I was like, time to see it again just for that. Like, I literally, like, that and the relationship, and obviously not to the same degree, but between Gilgamesh and Thena.
Oh my god.
And it was just
just the purity, like, it's, I mean, my interpretation was it's completely platonic. If other people interpret it as romantic, I think my next statement fits either way. Just two people who have the purest, most absolute love for one another, and what an equal and beautiful and supportive partnership.
Yes.
That to me is forget the, you know, the passion of Cersei and Icarus, or even Mercari and Druig. Like, Thena and Gilgamesh's relationship to me is the golden standard. There's just selflessness, sacrifice, and love.
Yeah.
Just pure love. It's beautiful, regardless of whether you view their relationship as platonic or romantic, because it really isn't ever defined. I think that statement still is valid.
Well, and honestly, like, this is also a slight tangent, but off of the same point, like, Angelina Jolie's performance as Thena, and just, like, her, like, even in the scene with Gilgamesh when he is dying, like, everything, like, you could just see, like, and I really loved how she wasn't just this, she's so strong, blah, 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 because, okay, not to be like, oh, feminist and weird, like, I'm not saying it for that case. I liked that it showed her struggle. I liked that she sat there, and while she was always known to be this goddess of war, she was, like, out of commission because she couldn't trust her own mind, you know? Yeah. And maybe that's because I'm a Bucky fan, but I don't know, you know? Maybe there are connections, who knows? But that's how I felt. I thought her performance was great.
Yeah, no, I think she was absolutely stellar. I'm not gonna lie, I was I think most nervous about her because She's arguably the biggest name that they brought in.
Yeah.
And I was like, please don't phone this in. Like, this is so important for so many people.
Yeah.
Please give this everything you've got. And, you know, she is a great actress. I've only seen her in a few movies, but she's been good, you know. But I desperately wanted her to give this her all, and I think she absolutely delivered. She was incredible. She stole every single scene she was in. And I loved how, again, I think this goes back to the director and how well she directed these scenes, but she's not a one-dimensional character. To your point, she's not just Athena, goddess of war, strong and completely, you know, whatever. She's Athena, goddess of war, but she's also has doubts in her own self, and she has weakness, and I think that makes her more not only relatable but also more likable. And I mean, the scene where she talks about how she doesn't want to lose her memories, I was like, I'm not gonna cry right now, but like I kind of want to. And then when Gilgamesh died, I was like tearing up, and I was like, please keep them in, please keep them in. Like, I don't want to cry right now.
Well, and you know what? I want to say this too, which is something I think I got very lucky with. So for a class of mine, I had to watch Girl Interrupted, which Angelina Jolie is in with, I believe it's Winona Ryder. And they're essentially psych ward patients. And when I tell you, I was very lucky to have been able to watch this right before, like literally the day I watched Eternals on Thursday. I was watching this movie for class. Her performance in that and seeing the emotion and the way that she can just move an entire room, and then seeing her act as Athena, which is probably like 20 years later because that movie was, I believe, from the 90s. I literally was like, wow. Because you can just tell, like, this woman can act. And she can play these complex roles where she's just, like, you give her the script and she can run with it. And I like, it's much different than seeing her in, like, well, actually, there's a good scene in Maleficent as well. A very beginning of it. I think when her wings are taken from her. Yeah, so, like, but, like, I loved everything she brought to the character. She brought such depth to this character, and I love that she had her own storyline happening within everything else. I thought that was so important, and I love that she's going to be one of the Eternals that is moving on to that we will see her again.
I agree. I'm so glad that she's going to be back. I think she really shocked me. Like I said, I've seen her in other movies and she was good, but she really, really impressed me in this movie. I am just like such a Athena stan now. Like, I love her. Like, oh my god.
But that she probably has come out as one of my favorite characters, I would have to say.
Yeah.
I personally thought Sprite annoying.
Oh,
I'm gonna say it.
Yeah.
Annoying.
No, I agree. And I do feel for her. I mean, to be a 7,000-year-old being who basically is infantilized, like the way Gilgamesh, you know, would say stuff about her being a kid, like, I mean, I can't relate because, you know, I am an adult who looks like an adult, but like, I understand. Okay, I see your face and I just like need you to not. I understand why she would be bitter and upset, especially because the man she loves, like, will never look at her as anything more than a child because of the body that she was given by none of her own volition. But I don't know, she just like was kind of like, out of all of the characters, I think she was the least dynamic.
Yeah.
And the least interesting. Like, I loved Mercari too. She
was
amazing.
I loved her.
So sassy. The representation, she was incredible. Amazing.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I look at all even like Ajax when you see her in like flashbacks and stuff. So I'm like, I look at all the other 9 and I was like, you know, there is depth. And not that I'm saying that I didn't think Sprite had depth.
She just had less than everyone else.
And it fell flat for me. Like, I get why I get where you're at, but it's like, Athena, struggling with, like, losing her mind. Phaistos created things that literally, like, people are killing each other with. Druig can stop everyone from killing each other, but is not allowed to. And I'm like, and you're like, I look like a child, indefinitely, and that makes me sad.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like,
when I look at it from that perspective, like,
if you put it in the context with what some of the other characters are dealing with, like, it definitely does not come out on the same level.
My favorite scene, Druig hits her over the head with the rock, and he was like, yeah, okay, she's done. And I was like, thank you. I was like, thank you for ending that, because if I had to hear her go on anymore about the whole, like, oh, I look like a child indefinitely, and Icarus, and I was like, oh my god, I was like, come on, like, and Kingo clearly was there for like a lot of comedic relief, which he gave.
Oh my god.
But I also was just like,
incredible.
He was at least an interesting character. Like, Sprite for me fell flat. I just didn't find the character to be interesting. And
yeah, I think what I liked about Kingo is the way he chose to integrate himself into like human society.
Yeah.
Like, other than Cersei, I think none of them, I mean, they all made varying levels of effort to integrate into humanity. And I think Kingo and Cersei by far were the most integrated. Cersei was just, you know, every girl, basically. She's just living her life out in London. But Kingo did it in such a flashy and interesting and funny way. I think that was kind of his, like, differentiator between him and, like, the rest of the team.
And he was freaking hilarious. Like,
he was so funny.
And so, like, I get, sometimes, like, characters get brought in for comedic relief, and you can just tell they're there for comedic relief, and it's just not, like, it falls flat, because you're like, eh. But he was so funny. His interactions with all the other Eternals was hilarious. Like, I was like, no, this is perfect. And I also thought it was very interesting that he straight up was just like, well, then I'm not fighting in the last battle.
Yeah. How he just was like, I'm not fighting my family.
And I was like, interesting.
Like, yeah. He was there for comedic relief, but at the end, you got that depth, and the betrayal of Icarus, the way that affected him, he was like, this is the person that I have admired and I've looked up to. Like, yes, I'm the jokester and the clown, but I admire the guy who I view as the leader and the strongest. Like, I want to be like him. And he put him on that pedestal, and he's this flawed being, and the way that broke him to the point where he would not even pick a side. Like, I just loved that it showed the depth below, like, the jokester. And I just thought that was so well done. Again, so well done in the character department. I have to say, like, I think these might be some of the best, most complex characters we've had in the MCU.
Yeah.
At least in one movie.
Yeah.
Like, others have, you know, grown and developed, you know, and that's great, and that's supposed to happen. But I think in a first outing, these might be the most complex characters we've gotten.
And can I be honest? Because when you look back at the MCU, it's never the leads that are usually the complex ones. I mean, like, in the nicest of ways, look at Cap. In the nicest of ways, look at Iron Man. It's never the leads that are the complex characters.
I was going to say, the most complex character in Thor is Loki, by far.
I mean, I was going to say the most complex ones in Cap is Bucky. Like,
yeah,
it's not the lead a lot of the time, because the lead is supposed to be the strong leader, and it's so, you don't have that complexity. Like, when you look at these characters and, like, compare them even to Captain America, as much as I love Chris and Captain America, and he did everything he needed to do in the role, there was no complexity, there was no depth. And, like, they tried to add that in Endgame with his ending, where it was, like, supposed to be he was the man out of time, but they never did it anywhere else, so it just was, like, awkward. Because it was, like, okay, so he grew accustomed for 10 years where he was, like, it, you know what I mean? And it was awkward. Well, this movie itself already was, like, here are 9, because no offense to Sprite, but no, I was not there for it. 9 very complex characters, you know? Like, yeah, that all have these depths.
Well, I think they did a good job of showing, like, yeah, okay, Steve's 100 years old, so he has the complexity and depth of someone who's 100 years old and spent most of that time in the ice. But these are people who have developed and lived and experienced for 7,000 years.
Yeah, like, Steve can sit down. He's got nothing else to say.
Okay, I'm a Cap girl, so please don't say that. But I will say, like, I do think that these characters were really, really well done.
Yeah, and I do love Cap, but, like, when you really look back at it, I can no longer even feel the sympathy of, I'm a man out of time, because I'm like, these people are the most powerful beings living among humans. I mean, poor Athena's out here living literally in the desert with Gilgamesh because she can't be around people because she could kill someone. Like, when I could do that comparison, I'm like, Cap, no offense, but, like, not the same anymore. Like,
yeah. I mean, it definitely makes some of our more on-the-ground heroes seem like child's play. Like, going from this
but I want to bring
Hawkeye,
that up.
like, what?
But I want to bring that up because I like the prospect of these kind of felt like on-the-ground heroes. Like, Athena, and I know I keep bringing her up, but she's a good example for a lot of this stuff, is technically an on-the-ground kind of person.
I mean, she might be able to make it, but, like, yeah, you're right. And even Gilgamesh.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean. So I like that prospect, that there was this ability, that it was like, there are, like, it really showed that we could have done better with characters before in the nicest of ways. And not that I don't love all of our characters, I do, but like, it shows that there's more that could have been done with them, which is why I think I always gravitate towards characters like Loki, Wanda, even Natasha, Bucky, because there's this depth to them. They have that dark side. They have that I'm struggling, and that was what Thena had. That's what a lot of the Eternals had. They're struggling with something.
Well, what does Tony say to Cap in Age of Ultron when they talk about what Wanda showed them? And he says to Steve, Steve says he didn't see anything, and Tony says to Steve, I don't trust a guy without a dark side.
Yeah.
So that brought that up for me.
Well, that's exactly. So I don't know. Like, looking back at it, I'm like, some of our old characters, I'm like, didn't have the same depth looking back.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I don't love them, but that's why I think I always gravitated toward the ones who did, who struggled. I mean, they go through more than you think. Like, I don't know. That's why the Eternals, to me, I was like, I love these characters. The only one I truly was not, like, sold by was Sprite. The rest of them, loved them. And I'm not saying the performance of the actress of Sprite was not good. I'm not saying that at all. I just wasn't really like...
No, it was very well done. I just think her character wasn't written with as much depth as the rest of them.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, when you're making a movie with 10 leads, not all of them are going to be top tier. You know, like, you can't make all of them fantastic. It's just, it's a lot. There's 10 main characters.
Exactly.
You know, that's just a lot happening.
Yeah. I agree.
All right. I think we may have talked about everything we wanted to talk about. Anything we missed, I'm sure Katie will put in the blog.
Of course.
But that is it. Hope you guys went out and saw Eternals this weekend. If you didn't get a chance, please, please, please go see it this week, next weekend. Keep the momentum going. Thursday night results were really good, so hoping that Marvel continues its box office domination.
Well, and if you didn't see it, I'm not sure why you stuck around for the entirety of this.
Oh yeah, sorry guys. There's some, like, character deaths that, like, you definitely heard about, so are not going to be surprised. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that was on you. I'm not even going to say it. That was on you. We said it from the beginning. If you haven't seen it, like...
Yeah.
Oh well.
Sorry guys. Anyway... You know the deal. If you love our podcast, please remember to give us a follow and tell your friends about us. We are on Spotify, Apple Music, and many of the major platforms, so please give us a follow, like, review, share. Give us a follow also on our blog, where we have lots of extra content, some things that we forget to talk about in the episodes, and also just some fun memes and things that you might find entertaining.
Yeah, and also, I think I mentioned it earlier, but we have our Twitter, which is Let's Talk MFT. Go make sure you're following that. We share theories, which obviously we're Marvel fan theories, so that's the point. Let's talk. But we share theories, memes, everything on Twitter. I like to share stuff with all you, and I like when you share it all with me. So make sure you're checking that out, because that's probably the most direct way to interact with us at any time. And especially when the movies and content is coming out, it's a great way to just get quick messages out to everyone about, hey, this just happened, like, holy nuts. So, as always, make sure you guys are keeping up with the content. There is a lot coming our way towards the end of this year. We've got Hawkeye, and we obviously have Spider-Man, which I know everybody is already, like, freaking out about. So, make sure you're keeping up with all the content, because Marvel just blew your mind, so let's talk about it.